All right. All right. I think we're gonna. Everybody is in, and so we're gonna kind of formally get started. So with that, let me welcome everybody to a new year of the Michigan Business Network Speaker Series. These have actually been going on since, believe it or not, 2004, and our very first guest was Joe Dumars, who was the general manager then of the Detroit Pistons, and we've had wonderful guests. And today is, of course, no exception. A little bit about our audience very quickly. We have a good percentage of our guests that are going to be registered for this webinar, and many more that are watching us live on our website and also on Facebook Live. And we also know that we're going to have a very healthy audience that will be picking up this on our website at a later date as a podcast. We want to thank all of you for joining this virtually audience, which is ever expanding, I guess is a good way to put it. I will say this by way of housekeeping: if you lose your connection to the webinar, then you can rejoin using that same unique link in the email that you used to join initially, and we will of course bring you in from the wait room. As a reminder, if you want to go right through Zoom, our meeting ID is 890-5415. 0053, and the passcode is 182959. It's 182959. Now, let me go through what I always go through, and with wonderful open heart to these people. These things don't happen without sponsors. And I'm going to list you our sponsors right now, and they're people who have been with us a lot and for a long time. Sinair is one of them. Dean Transportation is one of them. PNC Bank is one of them. We also have LEAP, Lansing Economic Area Partnership, Shaheen Chevrolet, MSU, International Business Center, and the Broad College of Business, as well as the Capital Region International Airport. So glad to have them as sponsors, all of them, and also know the benefit they all have for this community. So, as is our tradition for the speaker series, we're going to go around the table, so to speak, to leaders of our community for a little update. And here is a set of pre-recorded videos that we've gathered for this event's community roundtable. First up is Rob Benstein. He's the interim executive director of the Capital Region International Airport. So, Rob, with that, take it away.
Well, thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, like many businesses, the airport had a challenging 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. Passenger traffic for the year was down 37%. This is actually consistent with the industry average. We are fortunate to retain service to Chicago and Detroit on our three main airlines, Delta, American, and United. I'm also happy to report that Apple Vacations is once again offering seasonal service to Cancun. The nonstop flights will operate on Saturdays through the beginning of April. The bright spot is our air cargo activity, which is related to the UPS Michigan hub operation here in Lansing. Outbound cargo was up 6% year over year. Inbound cargo was up 1.5%. In addition, UPS added 4 weekly flights to its schedule in January. Our current efforts are focused on maintaining a safe and healthy environment for our passengers, employees, and tenants. In addition to requiring the wearing of masks and promoting social distancing, we are conducting additional cleaning and sanitizing activities, and we're upgrading facilities and fixtures to implement a touchless experience to the extent possible. Looking ahead, we anticipate the travel demand will pick up this summer, and we expect the return of our Washington, D.C. and Minneapolis service at that time. Thanks for your attention this afternoon. If you have travel plans in the near future, we encourage you to fly Lansing.
All right, next up is one of our pre-recordeds, and I think you could tell because myself and, of course, our guest is dressed up for warmth more than decorum. That's because it's a 0-degree temperature outside the door. But Mark McDaniel, who is the CEO of Sinair, Mark, give us a rundown on maybe Sinair and COVID-19.
Yeah, last year when we entered the pandemic, made the decision to close offices down in March, we thought our year was going to be a loss, and we've never had a loss in our history. But we really managed through it really, really well. And number one is because we paid attention to our valued team members, number one, and took care of them, made sure they're okay, they're healthy, they're safe, they had everything they needed to do their work. Focused on our investors after that, and they delivered at a much higher volume than what we thought, which means we actually had a very good year last year. What's that mean? Yeah, it was great. But what's it mean for 21? Our investors have told us their appetites are as strong, in some cases stronger than they were last year. But there's a twist to this. This is where last year's social justice movement is now starting to, you see that in some of the financial markets. And they want to see that when they invest with us and what we invest their money in, that we can document the social impact for every dollar that they are putting into us, which means they want to know the census tracts where the money's going, what the makeup of the population is, of their incomes and races, and that they can document to their regulators and others that they are focused on social justice with how they make their investments.
Well, Mark, I got to tell you that financially, that's a great report. And probably COVID-19 inadvertently is pointing us in a direction where we should be paying more attention anyway. So, Mark, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for all your help with everything and continued success with Sinair. Mark McDaniel, CEO of Sinair.
Thank you, Chris.
And next up on the community roundtable, our old buddy Jason Cords, General Manager, Executive Manager at Shaheen Chevrolet, Shaheen Cadillac, Lansing, Michigan, and Infinity. Jason, how you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you?
Very good, thanks. So give us a rundown. What's happening with auto sales?
I'll tell you, things have been pretty good. We're still, it's still a little tough to get inventory. We've got a digital chip issue that's going on right now that's slowing things up, and but they're trying to get a grip on this. So they're having quite a little issue getting. They're still building vehicles, but the chips coming in later, and then they'll put that in, then ship them to us. But that's causing a little hiccup on inventory.
So levels. this is for the electronic piece of the car, the operation.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
But overall, it's been good. Still with the snow and stuff, we still got people coming on by, and we're pretty fortunate to have an 8-bay quick lube and tire center, and tire sales are through the roof right now. And we do tire match guarantee, so it doesn't matter where you go to get a price, we match it, and General Motors helps us with that, so that's a good thing.
Well, you guys have always done an awesome job, and keep up the good work. And what a frustration for you guys who love selling cars to not be able to get as many as you need.
I know it. And also, I want to do a little shout out. We've got the Greater Lansing Food Bank. We're a drop-off center until the 28th of this month. So in our Cadillac facility that's now on campus, so you can drop off food there, cans of food, or at the Chevrolet store. And but we're trying to help them out, and it's a little time of need right now, so we're doing that also.
Well, new executive director out there, Michelle Lance, she's putting it to all of us. We're all involved. So that's good.
Excellent.
Jason Cords, General Manager, Executive Manager at Shaheen Chevrolet, Shaheen Cadillac in Lansing, Michigan, and other things that we can't even share with you, or we'd have to shoot you. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Chris.
All right, the next one up for today's speaker roundtable is Jim Schmelter. He is the Senior Vice President at PNC Financial Services. And Jim, it's everything's been roly-poly this year, with the exception of maybe the stock market, which is moving up and down and getting some manipulation of late. What are you telling your investors right now?
Yeah, Chris, thanks. Great to join you today. It's still volatile, not nearly as volatile as it was back in March and April of last year. But really what's happening with the stock market, Chris, is there is so much stimulus in the system coming from both the Federal Reserve and from Congress, just records amount of stimulus that's helping to drive stocks even higher. That cash has to go somewhere. And actually, there's about $4 trillion of cash sitting on the sidelines right now, waiting to be invested. So we think the market's going to continue to go higher. Right now, we're Tuesday after the long President's Day weekend, and the market's already up this morning. What we're watching too is the consumer. The consumer continues to be in great shape financially. So they've deleveraged, paid down a lot of debt last year. and their savings rate is at all-time record highs. So that's really good for the market and the economy. And now what we're going to watch is the stimulus and vaccination rates. So this past weekend, we had 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, where we did 2 million vaccinations each day. That was a record number. We're really at about an average of 1.5 million per day. But the closer we get to that herd immunity and the economy opening up, then what the private sector is going to do from a GDP growth rate and stimulus is going to dwarf anything that the government can do. So we are bullish on stocks for the year. We very well could have a 5 or 10% correction at some point in the first half of this year, but net for the full year, we should be positive. Also watching interest rates. The Fed has come out and said they're going to keep that Fed funds rate, the short-term rate, at zero, at least through December 31 of 2023. We project it's going to stay at zero until mid-2024. And then in terms of the 10-year Treasury yield, we started last year at 1.82%, dropped middle of last year down to 50 basis points. Now today we're up to 126. But we also think the Fed is going to try to control that rate because that really is so important to the housing industry. And the housing has done great. And if they can keep that going with a low 10-year Treasury yield, that's really also going to help stimulate the economy and help bring us out of this pandemic in a very strong fashion. So,
well, there you go. Everything from investing to COVID vaccines. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Jim Schmelter, Senior Vice President of PNC Financial Services.
thanks, Chris.
Next up is Amit Kurja. He's Associate Professor in the Marketing Department at the Broad College of Business. And Amit, you look very comfy in your home there. And I think that was a tip-off that we're pre-recording this. But it's great to have you on, and we've certainly enjoyed our relationship with you guys. What is happening at the Broad College of Business?
Well, thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to kind of give you an update about how things are going in the International Business Center in the Broad College of Business. As you know, we are one of the 15 national resource centers of the U.S. Department of Education. So our primary mission is to provide superior education, research, and assistance to businesses, policymakers, academics, and students on international business and trade. And that's exactly what we've been doing. There's been some leadership changes, and we've been working on some reassignments, but things have been moving forward. And I'm working very closely with the deans as we speak on a strategic plan, on a new strategic plan. But things are not really going to change that much in terms of where we're going and what we're going to be doing in the future. So our primary objectives that align with the strategic priorities of the Broad College include to serve as a global resource center in teaching, research, and academic outreach in international business field. And we've been doing that with our involvement in the Academy of International Business, with community colleges, with local businesses, MEBC, and everything else that we're doing here in Michigan. The second one, a very important one, is to provide Michigan and US businesses support in their internationalization efforts. And that's a very critical mission for us. And we've been serving the local community and businesses in that capacity as well. And finally, we started to focus a little bit internally, more heavily to enhance a global mindset among faculty and students at the Broad College. So that's probably the biggest change that we are trying to make to be able to better serve the Broad College and our own faculty and students. So that's the new initiative, if you will.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you go into this strategic planning session, remember how really effective you have been for businesses, not only in this community, but throughout the state. And don't change too much, Amit, because you've had great success there. Amit Kurja, Associate Professor, Marketing Department at the Broad College of Business. Thanks for, as always, being here and being a part of this.
Thank you.
So listen, I thought everybody would be totally impressed over the quick wardrobe changes that I had to undergo for those. I see so many people out there that I want to put on, and I apologize to all of them that we don't have time to get to everybody. But I do see Bob Trezise out there, and I call Bob the Minute Man because he can deliver any message in 1 minute, as long as it's not over a half an hour. Bob, bring us up to date.
I get the joke, Chris.
Bring us up to date on LEAP. What's going on?
Well, I'm so pleased to announce to everybody today that our pipeline for projects, both expansion and attraction, is fuller than it's been in 10 years. It's really remarkable. It's almost entirely manufacturing, and a huge amount of that is related, Chris, to, I would say, the sort of reshoring issue, if you will, of the healthcare or med tech related industry. So we're most pleased for that. I really, knock on wood or whatever, but I think we could be making some national scale major announcements with these companies and projects over the next just few months. They're also on very fast track. Some of these projects are so complex, they would typically take a year and a half to figure out, whereas we're dealing with them maybe in a matter of months. Our entrepreneurial part of LEAP is very robust. Our One and All program servicing entrepreneurs who are all below the ALICE threshold, the working poor, is going very well. Our hatching competitions is going terrific in that area. So we've got a lot going on, Chris. I'm very bullish on having maybe one of our biggest economic development years ever. We're going to make some big initiative announcements in our med tech sector too, here in the next 30 days or so. And we're working with our ag tech committee as well. And I think some good things are going to come out of that. So thank you, Chris, very much. And thank you to everybody for supporting LEAP.
Yeah, I love you, right? Okay. All right. Great job. Appreciate that. Well, I want to thank the sponsors and the community leaders who are jumping in. And I wish we could get to everybody because so many of you out there in the audience have really important messages. It is at this point my distinct pleasure to introduce a friend, I'm happy to say. I'm not sure you could get him to admit to that, but he is a good friend. He has done a tremendous job, and he's a good guy besides. Tom Kelly is globally recognized as an expert on Industry 4.0 and its impact on business. As the Executive Director and CEO of Automation Alley, Michigan's Industry 4.0 Knowledge Center. Kelly oversees strategic planning and all ongoing activities for the organization, including programs and services designed to help businesses increase revenue, reduce costs, and make strategic decisions during a time of rapid technological change. So today, Tom wants to make this as probably interactive as possible. So jump into the chat room and please start posting your questions as they come to you. And we will get to them as we move along. We'll also endeavor to get as many of those as possible. And for those of you which we don't get to, we will get you the answers at a later date, and we will post them on our site for everybody who's in attendance today. So with that, please welcome and get out your notepads. The guy's got a lot of interesting and really important information. Tom Kelly. Tom, thanks for being here, bud.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully I can live up to that introduction. Geez, I'd like to meet that guy. So that's better to have them than think you're a genius than open your mouth and prove otherwise, right? So I have to quit while I'm behind. I guess Wade is going to take us through. I have some slides. I want to make this relatively brief, Chris, because I think the power is in the Q&A, right? You always want to talk real time about what's happening. So Wade, you can go to the next slide. So Automation Alley is really Michigan's Industry 4.0 Knowledge Center. And we embarked on this journey about 4 years ago when I came in as the CEO. I was the COO for a little bit of time. And we really pivoted and said, look, automation has changed a lot, and it's really focused around Industry 4.0. And so that's going to become our mission. And we really focused over these last many years trying to build a huge library, a place where you can come and find information, but curated information in a way that allows you to become more knowledgeable, more strategic. So that, go to the next slide, Wade, and that gets to our mission, which is, of course, all things Industry 4.0. And so that begs the question, what is Industry 4.0? Many of you may know that term, or advanced manufacturing. So if we go to the next slide, Wade, the way we define Industry 4.0, it's a term that came out of Germany. It really stands for the fourth industrial revolution. So bear with me on this, but the first one was steam, right? Where the train was invented and it changed how work was done. The second industrial revolution was Henry Ford meeting electricity. We created electric engines, and we created factory assembly lines, and that changed manufacturing. And then 3.0 was robotics meeting computers, and those two changes changed manufacturing yet again. And now we're into the fourth industrial revolution, and this is where digital meets the physical. So you think about all of these technologies that are on this screen, like 3D printing, which is called additive manufacturing in some circles, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, modeling and simulation is the same as virtual reality and augmented reality. You have robotics that are becoming much more collaborative, much smaller, much less expensive. We know about cloud computing. The thing to take away from this slide, this information that I'm sharing, is Michigan created the second industrial revolution. And these revolutions, by the way, play out over decades, if not multi decades. The second industrial revolution played out over 40 years. Michigan invented it and created huge amounts of wealth. There was a time when Detroit was one of the richest cities in all the world. It was called at one point, I think, the Paris of the East, or something, Paris of the West, something crazy like that, Chris. And the third industrial revolution was just similar enough to the second that we dominated that. We were the largest users of robots in the world for decades. China supplanted us about 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but Michigan was the place where if you wanted to understand how robots and automation work together, you went to Michigan to learn how to do that. Now we come to the fourth industrial revolution. This digitization where it's all based on software and things that exist outside of the physicality of a manufacturing plant. This is where it gets a little dicey because Michigan is not very well schooled in digitization, so to speak. And so we have great risk. We created assets, trillions of dollars of assets around the second industrial revolution. And we piled on top of that assets from the third industrial revolution. It almost makes us uniquely unqualified to win in the fourth industrial revolution. And that's why Automation Alley's hair is on fire in terms of getting people in our region to understand how critical it is to understand what's happening in Industry 4.0 and how it's not about incrementally changing the efficiency and effectiveness of manufacturing, that Industry 4.0 is about a whole new business model for manufacturing. And that's incredibly risky. So if you want to go to the next slide, Wade. I'm sorry, it's you'll have to go through. Industry 4.0 is the biggest organizational disruptive force of our lifetimes. I truly believe this because if you're an organization, Industry 4.0 changes the business model. And what's most risky, as I talk to CEOs as Chris and I have talked before, as I talk to CEOs around this state, almost all of them are not technology natives. Almost all of them are not digital natives. Therefore, they view technology the way their predecessors viewed technology. Technology is a tool that helps you become more efficient and effective in the business model you are trying to run. And almost none of them are talking like technology is the business, and I happen to be doing something else, right? Mary Barra says that I hope that when I retire, people will view GM as a tech company that happens to make cars. And we're going to get back to that statement. And Jim Farley has the same attitude, and Stellantis has the same attitude. They all are beginning to get that it's all about technology. So Jamie Dimon says, we're a tech company that happens to be in the financial space when they talk about Chase. So go on to the next slide, Wade. So why do companies get disrupted? They have an operational focus. They don't focus on the business model, leads to mission creep. And then that leads, in a technology world that's digitizing, it actually leads to a business vitality issue. So we can go to the next slide. I want to share with you an example. So Kodak is sort of the poster child for the first digital disruption that was so massive. So they were a film manufacturer. They said, we make film, and they completely missed the digital camera play. And the irony is, for those of you who know, Kodak invented the digital camera. They invented it in 1972. And the engineer that invented actually predicted in his report at what time would the digital camera begin to threaten and be viable in the world. And he said, if you follow Moore's law, it's going to take about 20 years, 1992. It took to about 1996 to where digital cameras really started to go mainstream. Kodak missed the transition and ultimately filed for bankruptcy. They made a lot of money on royalties because Kodak, back to that previous slide, Kodak was in the operational business of making chemicals to process film. Therefore, nobody in the executive suite was comfortable saying, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You want me to undermine and destroy the business I have that is a cash cow that prints money to focus on this little technology that's going to take 20 years to develop? You're out of your mind. And so you can't really fault those executives for that time. However, let's go to the next slide, Wade. However, and this is the example for Kodak, but the point I'm trying to make is nobody has that excuse anymore. Nobody has that excuse anymore. In the retail industry has watched Amazon as a slow train for 20 years, 20 plus years. That train has very slowly and methodically eaten their lunch and they all say, yeah, but Amazon has 2% of the market. I'll get to it when I get to it. What they didn't understand was you can't just catch up one day, that you're in a cultural war where you have to change the culture in your organization, and that takes decades. So every one of us needs to be a tech business and needs to work on changing your culture. Let's go to the next slide, Wade. So what's the business impact of Industry 4.0? Let's go to the next slide. Technology evolves rapidly while business models respond slowly. This is the great business risk. So if you think about it, technology is moving at breakneck speed, and what you have is business models that have been built on very sophisticated processes that people in your organization are loath to change. In fact, Ford calls them the antibodies, where any new idea that comes in from outside Ford, the antibodies kill it as a virus. Get it out of there quick as possible. I'm just picking on Ford. Ford's doing wonderful work these days, but that's a joke that I heard from Ford people themselves that said, hey, we got these antibodies in the organization. So my point is, financial analysts that are also CFOs, they tend to undervalue physical assets and overvalue digital assets. This explains why Tesla gets an $800 billion valuation and Ford and GM get $70 billion and $30 billion valuations. Even though they generate way more cash, Wall Street says, but I'm going to bet. Remember, Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's what Wall Street is saying, that Tesla's culture will eat our lunch here in Michigan because Tesla understands how to move super fast, and it has nothing to do with the physicality of the car that's going to decide who wins this EV and autonomous race. It's the mindset of how quick can we move. So next slide, Wade. So physical is always going to be relevant if driven by a digital strategy. So next slide, Wade. So the challenge is, how do I be a digital company that happens to be in the business of X? What is that X, right? Many of you might be in the restaurant industry. You might be in education. You might be in banking. All of us ask, for whom does the bell toll? The bell tolls for thee. The bell tolls for all of us, that all of us need to wake up every day and say, how do I think digitally first and then go from there? So let's go to the next slide. I want to be cognizant of my time, Chris, because I really want to get to these questions. So what we propose as Michigan's Industry 4.0 Knowledge Center is, we think It's actually not about technology at all. So everything I just said to this point around technology and all the technological change, point is discount that. You cannot solve problems in the organization by focusing on a technology solution that you're going to bring in, and it's going to be a robot, or it's going to be a new website, or it's going to be some digital thing. The problem is culture. We need to change our culture, and we need to become learning organizations. And from that, you're able to manage any disruption, because now you have an organization that says, what's the problem? How do I fix the problem? If technology is the right choice, let's do it. How do I speed up this change? So let's go to the next slide, Wade. So critical priorities that we share with all our members at Automation Alley's: don't focus on technology first, focus on technology last. Two things you need to get your house in order up front. One is you got to change your culture. And that means being accepting of failure, being accepting of experimentation, and taking option-like bets and saying, look, we're going to have a pile of money. Doesn't have to be a big pile. When I talk to manufacturers that are really small, I say, Tom, we can't play in Industry 4.0. I said, you can buy a sensor for $20 that'll measure heat, vibration, and current, and a bunch of other things all at the same time. Put it on anything you want. I don't care. Just sit at home and watch that machine on the weekend and say, huh, that's something I didn't know. $20, right? I reject the argument that you can't participate in Industry 4.0. There are so many solutions out there, but you have to change your culture that says, I'm willing to experiment. And then financially, you want to make sure that you have that little pile of cash that you can actually use to make these bets, to buy that sensor. You need play money, right? If you need to invest in different things to say, I wonder what would happen if. Go ahead and do it. A VR system costs $600. Go get an HTC Vive VR system, hook it up to your computer, and see what's state of the art, right? See how Lincoln Electric is using it to teach people how to weld remotely. And by the way, when 5G comes along, you will be able to weld remotely. This is not stuff of science fiction. They're already doing remote operations. If you can have the dexterity of a surgeon in a remote operating room where the surgeon is across the country, you can't weld with a robot remotely? You think we're going to have a welding shortage when the welder's sitting in their own home and going from job to job to job to job with zero travel? So these are the kinds of things we need to think about that gets back to culture that says everything is possible today. What limits us is our inability to change, our reluctance to accept what the future will be, to try and hold on to what was in the past. That is the age-old problem. It's what causes all revolutions, and it's why people that are in a revolution on the outside, on the coming out end, are usually not the same people that were going in. Right? The people that were going in become the hamburger of the people going out. So you got to be very careful that you understand how to manage this. So if we go to the next slide. So Netflix, as an example, they had a digital first mindset. Remember, they were in the physical space. You used to get your DVDs in the mail. Those are physical DVDs, but they called themselves Netflix. It was never about DVD fulfillment, even back when the studios thought it was. Then they went to third-party streaming, and then they went to original content. And now they are the force of nature in the entertainment industry. And they started out, they went to Blockbuster when they first got started, and Reed Hastings said, if you give us $50 million, you can buy us. And Blockbuster went, why the hell would I do that? Blockbuster's bankrupt. Netflix is now the most powerful entertainment company in the world, right? So just to give you some little examples. So lastly, Chris, if I have just 5 more minutes, I want to make sure that people that are in this audience know what programs are available through Automation Alley. And just real briefly, I'll talk about some of them. So the first one is we do evaluations and assessments around Industry 4.0. And what do? This is free, by the way, funded by the MEDC. Any manufacturer in the state qualifies. We evaluate your culture. Because again, we're not in evaluating which technology should you choose, should you put a sensor on that machine. Quite frankly, I could care less. What I really want to know is, do you have what it takes to ride out the failures that will occur as you try and navigate to the future state. That's what we want to evaluate. And by the way, engineers are usually good at that. Engineers live with a culture of failure. You know, it's called WD-40 because 39 of them didn't work, right? So, and that's the kind of culture we need to get in our society again, that says it's reward the effort, reward the trying. Don't reward, hey, what's your ROI? First thing a CFO does, hey, I got this project, what's the ROI? I don't know, I'm on WD-1. Oh, you ain't getting funded then, right? So let's make sure that we reward innovation. So the second thing we do is we have tech takeovers. These are open for anybody. Tech takeovers occur every Wednesday. We bring in somebody with an expertise around artificial intelligence or around robotics or around 3D printing, whatever it is, and every one of us can spend that hour and learn about what is current in that market, what is cutting edge. And that's important because it's about turning information into knowledge, which becomes wisdom, which becomes action, right? It doesn't matter if Automation Alley educates all of Michigan on Industry 4.0, big deal, who cares? If nobody acts and actually helps regain our competitive advantage on the world stage, then, you know, it's all for naught. Next slide, Wade. Our tech and industry report and reveal, this is done by our academic, and we have 50 academic institutions as a part of Automation Alley. 12 of them help us write this report. And it's really, you know, Jim Hackett at Ford used to say, we're focused on what's now, near, and far. And this report really says, not about what's now, it talks about what's near and far. What do you kind of need to pay attention to? Now is what the tech takeovers are for. Those are experts in the industry that are with tech companies that know exactly what's possible now, and they're talking about what's now. This tech report is about what's near and what's far. You can go to the next slide, Wade. We also have an Integrate conference, and Chris knows all about this. Chris has been there. He's been a great participant. God willing, Chris, it's live this year. And we can convene in October. That's the whole point. Let's get people back together. But this is something that I recommend for everybody. We meet at the TCF Center, and it's all things Industry 4.0 all day. And it's such a fun day. And it's a way to level set, and everybody can walk out of there and go, wow, I think I know what is current today about Industry 4.0. And that's done this year. By the way, a sneak peek, Chris, I don't think I've announced this ever yet. That's going to be in partnership with the World Economic Forum this year. They're bringing in some heavy hitters. I don't even want to speculate who we're going to get from the World Economic Forum, but you can speculate. There's a guy who wrote a book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. And so we are pretty darn stoked about this upcoming Industry 4.0 conference. It's going to be really exciting. And then, of course, you know, we run trade missions, we have soft landing space, but the whole idea is get involved. You can go to the next slide, Wade. Get involved. I don't care where you get involved, but make sure that you understand how to change your culture, how to move to this new world. The last thing I'm going to leave you with, Project Diamond was a project we just in the process of completing with Oakland County and Macomb County. We bought and distributed 300 3D printers to 300 small manufacturers in Oakland and Macomb counties. This is so transformative because almost all of them didn't have 3D printers before we gave them one. And we said, we want you to be prepared to be able to make PPE should we need it. Masks, ventilator parts, swabs, all the things that can be done in 3D. But in the meantime, we want you to learn how to use it. And I want to give you one anecdotal case. So we had one manufacturer of the 300 came in to talk to me. I love meeting them and talking with them. He said, Tom, I was skeptical. I took the printer because it was free, right? Plain and simple. You were going to give it to me, I took it. And he said, so we printed out the test part that we were required to print to qualify to have this printer. And I couldn't believe the finished quality of it. And I couldn't believe how strong it was. And it got me thinking, you know, we buy this part for $99. It's a stainless steel valve that's really hard to make. And it costs us a lot of money. It's a little part, it was $99. I had my engineers take that drawing that we outsource, convert it to a print, and we printed it on our printer using carbon fiber. And we put it on a cycle test. It lasted 42,000 cycles, more than the original stainless steel part lasted. He said, that's our new part. We now print our own parts for this machine. He said, Tom, you're not going to believe it. Guess what it costs me to make that part now? I said, I don't know what. He said, $1. Carbon fiber. I print it myself. I went from $99 paying somebody else to $98 in my pocket. If that isn't the best anecdotal story I've ever heard. And this was a guy that was a small manufacturer, said, I wouldn't know what the heck to do with a 3D printer, Tom. Now he does. And now, by the way, now the follow-on story is he's got his engineers crawling through every nook and cranny looking for, hey, can we build that in-house? Can we do that in-house? Can we do that in-house? So it just goes to show you, if you give them the ability to have this kind of technology and not say, well, for you to even get a look at the goodies, you got to pay 20 grand. We said, no, here's 20 grand. You figure out what to do with it. The innovation will come. It was getting that market seeded. And this is quite a big deal. So we're very pleased with that. And I think that's it for me, Wade and Chris, and probably the fastest presentation I've ever given in terms of compressed time, but I really wanted to get to questions, Chris.
Well, I'll tell you what, you talked about change a lot, and I think your presentation has changed a lot just in this audience, because I know some of those stories as well, and of course have followed what you guys have done very closely over the years. You're a phenomenal organization. So I do have a few questions that came in through the chat room. The first one, and I think this might have come in just after you talked about Tesla, it is, what lessons can we learn from SpaceX and Tesla?
So tons of lessons. So Tesla doesn't make a very good vehicle. Market doesn't care, right? The market doesn't care. Everything in Michigan is about, well, it's all about quality, Tom. It's all about really high end, market's going to kill you. The world has shifted a little bit where the consumers that are coming up, the next generation, they are digital natives, and they are so forgiving of digital companies and less forgiving of companies where they don't believe they understand how to get it done. So not to get too wrapped around the axle, but what they believe in Tesla is that digital is going to solve all the problems in the world, and Tesla is digital. Now, whether you agree with that statement or not, I'm not sure I agree with that statement. I wouldn't be in Michigan helping us all beat the crap out of Tesla today if I believed that. But that's what's happening. SpaceX, I'm going to use another example. SpaceX, there's a company in the space industry called Relativity Space. If anybody's heard of them, I met their CEO at a World Economic Forum event. They're based out of the old Hughes building in LA. They have they've built a 3D printer that allows them to print up to 40 feet wide and 120 feet tall. They want to build a complete rocket from scratch one time, 3D printed, all the electronics in it, everything, the metal it's all comes at once. And I said, well, wow, this is fascinating. I said, how close are you to being able to do that? He said, about 2 years. And then about 6 months ago, because this was about a year ago, I saw on TV, they had actually done a live test fire of the engine portion of their rocket, and it was successful. That was a 3D printed fuselage. The rest seems easy, right? If you can get the propellant and the rocket to perform properly, the rest is easy. And I said, why did you start at rockets? He said, well, if you're going to print parts, you might as well print a part that when you're finished, you sell it for $150 million each one. And I said, that's brilliant. He said, we're not building, this is the digital thing. He said, we're not building a rocket company. We're building a 3D printing company. We're just starting with rockets because those are the most expensive things you can sell. And we think once we know how to make a rocket, we can make anything in the world, right? And that's what we're saying to our 300 little small manufacturers that have printers. You're not in the automotive business. Once you print something and know how to do it, whatever can be printed, that's the business you're in, right? Because someone can digitally email you a file and you can print it immediately. It's mind-boggling, but that's the kind of business that we're in going forward. And by the way, we're working with Oakland County, Chris, to say, sounds crazy. We're thinking about having drones pick up those completed parts and fly them to a central location like a UPS consolidation center. That's where the future is. Why would we, have trucks going around picking them up? These drones can take 25 or 5 pounds at a pop, and we can aggregate them in.
Wow. Well, please don't tell me that the cost of building that fuselage was $1 because I'm,
I don't think it was $1, but hats off to him. And by the way, his biggest investor is Jeff Bezos,
well, no,
right? So he's got the deep pockets behind him. This is not a pipe dream. And SpaceX, you know, look at what they're doing. So just so much innovation going.
So I'm going to take a little MC prerogative here. I'm going to steal the next question. The biggest problem we had before COVID-19, as you know, was workforce. It was talent. It was getting them and keeping them.
Yeah.
So tell me about that aspect of it, because education is a very valuable component of the success of 4.0.
100%. But, you know, I have to be careful what I say here, Chris, because, you know, you want to be the messenger that doesn't have the arrows in the back. But we need to rethink how we value education and what it means to go through education. Business is struggling with academia now to find what that marriage is, right? Business is saying you're not moving fast enough, academia, and you're creating generalists when I need specialists in a specialized world, right? There's so many different things. I think the future is going to be found when academia and business come together and say, we're going to meet business where you are. It's not the physicality anymore. It's business is going to say, hey, I want to be able to teach welders how to weld in a virtual environment. And then I'm going to invest in robots that are 5G connected, where wherever that welder is, they're working for me, right? So we need to break this cycle of the physicality of education and the physicality of the skills needed, and you have to be on site and you have to do things. You know, you're getting glimpses of that. GE, Honeywell, all the big manufacturers, they don't fly the guy over to the plant anymore. They have a guy or a gal put on a headset with a camera and ear pods, and they take them out and they walk them through the whole solution. And the guy is seeing how to break apart this, you know, there's a difference between being skilled and I understand exactly how this goes, or someone with AR glasses being able to walk you through how to tear apart and reassemble a toaster. You see what I mean? It's totally different when you think, well, anybody could do that if they actually had the knowledge literally right in front of them that made it idiot proof. And that's where the world is going, that these skilled tradespeople will not be a welder. They may weld for a portion of the day. They may be an electrician for the next portion of the day. They may be a plumber for the portion after that, because all of the knowledge that is required for that job is no longer captured here. It's captured out there, and it's pushable to anybody. That's where education needs to go. Totally. It's I know it's almost anathema, but it's a different model.
Well, I think you're going to see, and we have some MSU folks on today.
Oh, we love MSU. They're blazing a trail. We work with them.
And the community colleges, Lansing Community College here, but others pretty responsive. I think you're going to see a lot more curriculums come out as innovation rather than.
It's really about a systems approach, Chris, saying, you know, I came out as an electrical engineer. And electrical engineer, by the way, within electrical engineering, you either were a power engineer or you were a semiconductor engineer or you're a computer engineer, you know, and the problem was if you were power, you didn't know anything about semiconductors. Well, in today's world, everything stitches with everything else. So you need engineers that know mechanical and electrical and civil, and it's very hard to get your head around. And it requires, again, the culture where the professor of engineering, electrical engineering says, screw you, I'm teaching this, and you know, I'm not changing. We say, no, but we all have to change. That's the future.
Well, Tom, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your presentation, and I got to tell you how much I value our friendship, but certainly what you guys do at Automation Alley, and you may find your mission changing a little bit too. It sounds like we're gonna need a lot of brokering for companies to move from 3.0 to 4.0 and be shown how to do that.
Yeah, and thanks for the kind words, Chris. And I'll tell you, just take the first step. Don't be afraid. Take the first step. Do it.
Good for you. I'll see you at the World Forum. All right.
Fantastic. See you later.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it very much.
Bye-bye.
So with that, again, these forums do not happen. The speaker series does not happen without our sponsors. And I want to call it to your attention again, Sinair, Dean Transportation, PNC Bank, Shaheen Chevrolet, MSU International Business Center, Broad College of Education, Capital Region International Airport, and of course, LEAP for their strong support. Our next virtual event will be on Wednesday, March 24th at 11:30 a.m. And our speaker is going to be Dr. Robert McMahon, president of Kettering University. They do a lot in the vein of workforce development. And we're going to hear some of the things that they're doing from a statewide standpoint. I want to thank my staff here at MBN for putting this whole thing together, who did make that technological leap and made it in pretty good order. Sarah Mosier, Mike Steibel, Wade Tong, and of course, Jeffrey Mosier, our interior staff here. And finally, I want to thank all of you. Remember that this is all going to be on the website at michiganbusinessnetwork.com. So you can go back, recapture all this. Tom will send you a link so you can have this presentation, and your PR department, knowing that you don't need one, but probably have one, your PR department can repurpose this thing as they see fit. So want to thank everybody for being here and being part of this virtual speaker series. We're hoping we can get back to meeting in person someday soon. But I will tell you, with the expanse of the audience that we have appreciated by doing this thing virtually, we're going to keep a virtual component to this, whether we meet in person or not, because it has really allowed us to get people like Tom Kelly without saying, Tom, we're going to put you in a hotel, come up the night before and pay for 3 meals. Tom, I'll send you a sandwich.
Chris, I miss going to a hotel. Please, I just want to come up and stay in a hotel.
All right, we'll see to that, whether we have you speak or not. All right. So thank you to everybody, and remember to go back and pick this off the website. By the way, you're able to pick this and many more broadcasts now on not just our website, but also Spotify, iTunes Play, Google Play, SoundCloud, and a number of others. Now, these additional platforms are allowing us to expand even further the size of our audience in the geographic region we can speak to. So thank you all for being here. We look forward to seeing you at the next one. Tom Kelly, thank you again so much, my friend. And to all of us here at the Michigan Business Network, and to all of you, have a prosperous month. Thanks for being with us.